Razorback Nation, welcome into today's episode of Razor Recap. Man, all it is to say, Arkansas sucks right now. And before we dive into that conversation, today's episode is brought to you by Scarlet Letter, Arkansas's very own handcrafted spiked seltzer. Check them out today. And if you're in Northwest Arkansas, you can check out Core Brewery Tap Room, where you can get Scarlet Letter in all its various flavors. And also, don't forget about Jared's Kickin' Sauce, the perfect blend of sweet and spice to transform any meal, whether you're just grilling burgers, roasting chicken, or just need a snack-worthy dip for crackers. Jared's Kickin' Sauce makes bland food good and good food great. Don't settle for ordinary. Kick it up a notch with Jared's Kickin' Sauce, your go-to sauce for every occasion. You can grab your bottle now at kickinsauce.com and let the flavor party begin. And, man, I guess the only thing to say is we saw Calipari actually go through with making a change to the lineup. But, that was the amount of extent for changes. For the most part, everything else changed the same. Arkansas didn't look great defensively. Didn't even shoot a free throw in the first half, if that tells you anything. So, this is just where we're at right now.
Yeah. You pretty much summed it up in the first 30 seconds. They just suck. They're not good. And it's hard to say that about a team that, had so much hype. And there's a lot of this narrative that's going around, about the transfer portal and putting people together, and that just because it's the right, personnel or the right talent level doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to, mesh well together. The problem with that in Arkansas, it's that 6 of the 9 guys were Cal's guys. These are ones that he either recruited or had with him at Kentucky. So to me, this is basically Kentucky's team from last year at Arkansas, give or take a few people. And I don't want to, the big problems haven't necessarily been between the 3 either transfers or returnees in Brazil and the 6 guys from, Kentucky. It's everywhere. It's just they're not mixing well. And to try and just say, well, you know what, that's how it is in the transfer portal. Yeah, sure. We got 6 of them in the transfer portal, but 3 of them were his guys, right? So those guys should have that connection already, and they just don't. So it's pretty weird.
Yeah, I agree. Like Transplant Texan, he only recruited 3 guys in this rotation from scratch. Technically, if you can't count Brazil, who entered the portal kind of, but then decided to stay. But yeah, it's tough. And if you look at like these guys that were at Kentucky last year, they made the tournament last year, so they made postseason last year. And it's like you said, I think the biggest part is you can just tell that there hasn't been any or very much gelling together with these guys, because when they're out on the court, it just, Adu struggles. And then, clearly Nelly Davis has been struggling. But, in a surprise yesterday, we saw Big Z play 30 minutes in this game and score 14 points. Where has that been? We saw that a little bit while Adu was hurt, and he was kind of forced to, play that big man role while there was no Jonas Adu. But, he steps up in this game, 14 points, 6 of 9 shooting, 2 of 5 from 3, misses both of his free throws, unfortunately, has 10 rebounds, so double-double in this game. 1 assist, 2 blocks, 1 steal in 30 minutes. Maybe that's a change where, maybe you start playing Big Z more if he can give you these type of numbers.
Yeah, and you said 2 blocks. Yeah, there was way more than 2 blocks. There's at least 4 that I counted that man swatted away, or at least got a tip on it. And then he, especially in the second half, he affected a lot more. Because I know for a fact he blocked 2 3-point shots, right, in the first half, and then he did a number in the second half under the rim. So the dude played lights out. And They also don't have super physical bigs either, so that's probably why he did so well, in my opinion. Like there was that one play that Calipari was really upset about, where their point guard came in and just lowered his shoulder into Big Z and knocked him back like 10 feet. Which one? I mean, it should be some kind of charge or something like that, you know. Them getting away from the charge, it's gonna make it a lot harder for defenses to play, I think, because in reality, it's probably a foul on Big Z, but still, there's no way that dude should have knocked him back 10 feet.
Right.
So that's I think that has a little bit to do with what how he played. Now, the other ones, I don't know what was going on with Adu. He looked like he didn't want to be there almost, you know, like he was just no energy, nothing. And then Trevor Brazil played okay. There wasn't anything wrong, you know, that sticks out to me necessarily, but I mean, he actually did pretty good, 3 or 4 from the field. He had hit his only 3-point shot, 0-2 from free throws, but I mean, everybody is missing free throws this year. So, yeah, I don't know. The bigs, I don't mind the way the bigs played yesterday.
Yeah. And it was interesting seeing the change in the lineup, you know, like we kind of talked about, you know, they shifted Theo to that 3 spot and slid Brazil in there in the 4. And and you still had Adu that kind of got the start there. But, you know, Brazil and Adu, 2 guys out of the starting 3 or starting 5 that, you know, they played less than 20 minutes apiece. You saw other guys get more minutes. You know, Big Z came off the bench for 30. You had Carter Knox play for 20. Billy Richmond 12. Nelly Davis for 19. So you saw a little bit of difference in the rotation as far as, you know, Brazil and Adu started, but then they didn't see a ton of action compared to some of those guys off the bench. But yeah, I mean, you look at it, we said they didn't shoot a free throw on a single free throw in the first half. They only shot 8 for the entire game. I don't know how much of that is like look at it as a home court advantage, like kind of similar to LSU, where some things weren't being called, but also were we not being physical enough in the paint as well to kind of draw those fouls as well?
I don't know about that. I mean, they had 42 points in the paint. I just don't think they were calling it. I think they were being pretty relaxed with it. And it was on both sides. So I don't want to say that it really did much necessarily to, you know, to help Missouri necessarily, but it that's kind of what Arkansas's game is, to a point. I mean, that's what Theo's done. Just drives up there, gets a hard foul, and he hits like half his free throws. But that's just kind of where they get some more points. But the thing is, that's a lot to not. That's only 8 in the entire game is insane for 42 points in the paint. I don't know how you can go in there that many times and not get, you know, an arm swatted once or, you know, whatever. It's just, it was crazy. But like I said, I feel like they were even on both sides. It's just that Missouri shot threes and sank them, and Arkansas drove to the basket and couldn't do it. They couldn't make a whole lot of them. So,
yeah, and especially because threes were not falling for Arkansas, only shooting 21%, hitting 5 of 23. You know, you saw DJ Wagner 0 of 4, Boogie 0 of 4, Carter Knox 1 of 5. Knox probably should slow down on the 3-point shooting until he can get more consistency. But, you know, Pigpen's point here, he said at least with Musselman's teams, the defense kept us in games long enough that we could get the offensive going. I mean, it looked like at the beginning of the season, Arkansas was going to have a strong defense, but, you know, since we've entered conference play, it's been terrible.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I don't know what it is. They're just, it really feels like they're overhelping, and they're just not aware of things going around them. Like it's a little too much for them. And whenever they don't rotate well, they don't communicate well. Like there was one time where Brazil came in from guarding someone on the edge, over in the corner, and the ball somehow got over to him again, and he has to run from the paint all the way to the corner, and they make a 3-point shot. And I'm like, why are you doing that? Like, where is the other help? Where's the other guys that are closer to him? They weren't spread out. It's just that one guy sitting in the corner, and Brazil went over there to help. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Their defense isn't great. Actually, their defense is pretty damn horrible. There's no isn't great. They're bad. They can't stop anything.
I was about to say, how much is it like these guys almost just remind me of like where it's at this point where it's like, are we just like, playing pickup basketball at this point? But yeah, I mean, I want to address, a issue around Transplant Texans comment here. He said, why do you put the game in the hands of your point guard that has a known hand injury? So Calipari addressed this post-game press conference, which, I mean, if you thought it was bad now, it's probably going to get a lot worse for the next at least 3 to 4 games minimum. He announced Boogie Flan, Arkansas's freshman point guard, will be missing some time with a hand injury. He said he injured it probably two games ago against Florida at home. He said he fell, and I think he said Billy Richmond fell on top of him or something like that and injured his hand. And he said they're gonna sit him for a few games, or for a period of time. He said he wasn't exact on how long, to see if they can get him healthy. So now your 8-man rotation drops, or your 9-man rotation drops to 8. Don't know if he tries to play more of somebody from the others on the team. I'll put it that way. Don't know, because I mean, at this point, you almost have to. You start 5 and 3 coming off the bench is not going to be enough. These guys are tired enough already. Now you don't have Boogie that's playing 40 minutes a game. You've got to find 40 minutes somewhere else. So it's going to be interesting how that's handled and how going forward, what we do. You're probably going to see a lot more of Nelly Davis.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: is I've been talking about how I want to see Nelly with the ball in his hand, and this is going to force it because they don't have without Boogie. It's just DJ. That's it. So you're going to have somebody else to come in and lead the offense whenever he's not in. And then after that, who I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know who you bring up, from if you're talking about the rest of that roster. I mean, if you just go through and look at it as far as guys that I don't even know from just looking at the rest of our roster, size-wise, you don't have many options either. I mean, you've got a freshman, Aiden Kelly, that's 5'10" from Memphis. You've got Melo Sanchez, the junior that transferred over from this small school in Hawaii Pacific, that's 6'4". At least he gives you a little bit of size compared to, you've got Kareem Watkins, 5'8". Aiden Kelly that I mentioned was 5'10". Casimir Chavis is 6 foot. And Jaden Carlueta is 6'5". So, hey, maybe this is one of those guys' opportunities to, I don't know, maybe work their way into more playing time even when Boogie gets back. But
here's the thing about it is that, I think that they rely too much on him anyways. So this is going to force them to do that. It's going to force them to try different things. It's going to force them to put the ball into Davis's hands more or Wagner's hands more, and then see what they can do. And then whenever they get a random pass from Davis, they won't, not be ready for it. because he's not the one who usually throws it to him. Stuff like that. It's just I mean, it's going to look horrible either way, but hopefully they become a better team because of it. Now, I don't know if it's okay to write the season off already, but I feel like most Arkansas fans have, and I'm pretty close to it just because I don't know how they can get much better. I don't know how they can get good enough to actually have a decent season with what they have left in the time that they have left. So it's very, very close for me to call it done, like just move on and think about what's going to happen next season. But if they do, I think going through this type of adversity could help them next season too, because a lot of these guys, like the young ones, like Billy Richmond and Carter Knox, the guys who are coming back, most likely Big Z is going to come back. I don't think he's ready for the league. That type of stuff, I think it could help them next year. So we'll just see.
Yeah, it's the thing about writing the season off is, I'm like you, it's close to getting to that point, but also you've got to start looking at it mathematically, like with the number of conference games and everything you have left. You're 0-5 already. You have Georgia coming to town on Wednesday, and it's going to be your first game without Boogie, so that's probably going to be not a great game. And then you have Oklahoma on Saturday. I don't know if that's enough time to get any consistency with it if you're trying to insert somebody else. Transplanting Texans said the 10 to 15 spots were merely quote-unquote practice squad players with a scholarship. They're not even close to being playable. I mean, if they were, you probably would have seen some of them already, I feel like. And then it's like Jerry says, no one on this team is consistently good at shooting. You think about all the wide open threes that we miss. Big Z is our best outside shooter by far, and he went through a struggle period. But at least you saw him in this game. He, not great, 2 of 5, but he still hit 2 shots from deep. And then Pigpen says normally 20 wins gets you in the tournament, but I don't know about 17 to 19 wins. To me, if we are, I hate even talking about that because we're not even anywhere near that. But if you got to that 17 to 19 mark, there'd have to be really good wins. Like you'd have to knock off some people. I mean, just look at Tennessee just got knocked off by Vanderbilt yesterday and a buzzer beater shot. Kentucky just lost to Alabama. So,
yeah. Speaking of Kentucky, the one person that Cal really couldn't have missed on, and he did, was Kobe Brea, because he's over there and he's shooting the second best percentage from three than anyone else in the SEC. The other one was, I think it was Grill, who we played yesterday. So, yeah, he missed on one big guy, and that was it. They needed a shooter, and he didn't get one. Is the way that I think of it.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I mean, to Transplant Texans' point here, he said Cal wasn't necessarily hired to bring in a multi-season rebuild the program. Fans, and I mean, including myself, expected improvement from where Muss got this program, not where worse than the pre-Muss years, which was, the end of the Mike Anderson era, where, we were average. We were, couldn't ever get over the hump, get over that, to make that run. And yeah, we're trending back towards that point. I don't know. Next year, going and looking forward, there's going to have to be a lot of work done. I mean, you're already going to know you've got Malik Thomas and Darius Acuff got committed. You got to keep those guys on board. And I think that's part of what the rest of the season looks like. You got to hold on to those 2 commitments from those guys. And then on top of that, be prepared to hit the transfer portal hard. I mean, if you just break down and look at this roster from your starters, Boogie's probably gone. Thero's probably gone. Brazil, I would count him as a toss-up. Jonas Adu's gone out of just pure eligibility. DJ Wagner could come back. Nelly Davis eligibility gone. Carter Knox and Bill Richmond are probably back, and Big Z will be back. So you're having to replace decent amount, and hopefully next year he goes towards more of the approach of getting maybe 10, 11, even 12 playable guys that that way you're have more of a rotation where guys can get more of a break.
Yeah, I think so. If they can keep a good portion of this roster, I think it'll look better next year. Just from a chemistry standpoint, But you got to get guys who can shoot too, because that's the way the game is. You have to get guys who can shoot. And I think I saw a comment earlier. The best guy is Big Z right now. That's not good. I don't care if he's a stretch forward or a center like that. That can't be your best 3-point shooter.
Yeah, I mean that's like Jerry says here. If we hit some of those threes Saturday against Missouri doesn't necessarily go on the 18-0 run in the first half, and then they were good looks. But if you just hit the shots, maybe we're talking about a potential close win for Arkansas. But Arkansas scores the first 2 points of that game, and then you turn around and they're down 18-2. And it's like, what the heck happened? So,
yeah, that's if you want to look at any stat on the stat sheet, that's it. It's to miss 3 points. You can't go into halftime with like 18% from three and expect to win any game in college basketball.
Yeah,
that's just it.
Yeah. Pigpen says, can't remember the last time I even seen a player smile on this team. They don't look like they're having fun. Granted, they're losing. They look just more frustrated than anything. And they probably are frustrated that, why can't they figure this out? They probably all know they're super talented guys. I mean, you're thinking, at least for like Boogie, he knows he's going to be a first round, probably lottery pick. That's easy. Regardless of how the season's going for the team, he's putting up decent stats for himself. Duke Thiero has been a consistent, he's probably playing his way up there. But I'm sure they're probably frustrated that even though they're performing well, the wins aren't coming. And I get it. They're frustrated. Cal's frustrated. Arkansas fans are frustrated. It's just a constant state of frustration right now for the state of Arkansas.
Yeah. It's, all across the board too. I mean, just the entire athletic program. I don't want to say entire. The main sports that people follow on a daily basis, it's just been horrible. And there's a portion of this, because the thing is, Arkansas fans have seen bad sports for a while, right? Arkansas sucked for like a decade. Basketball before Musselman hadn't been really good since Nolan, right? So like 20 years.
Yeah, as far as nationally good, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then baseball, baseball's good, but they disappoint you a lot. They, especially the last couple of years. So we're not like not accustomed to having to deal with sucky sports. But what we're used to is having a university that likes the fans too, that cares about the fans, that will try to make it enjoyable for you. But now it just feels it feels like they're just about money.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And the thing is, that's Hunter Yurchak's going to have to figure that out. You and I were joking about it before. I feel like baseball's got to win a natty for Hunter Yurchak to keep his job, because if not, fan morale is just going to go into the dumpster.
Especially
then nobody's going to come to games.
Yeah, especially when, like, as soon as those profit margins and those ticket sales drop way down there, that's when it becomes a main concern for, like, as far as you're checking his job. And a lot of people think he was already trying to find ways out anyway. There was rumored that he really wanted the South Carolina AG job. He went and really wanted the Texas A&M AD job. And so now if you just look at him, Doesn't post a ton on social media. When you see pictures of him, he doesn't look like in a good mindset or like he's enjoying himself. So, I'm sure this is probably stressful for him. I get it. But at the end of the day, you are the athletic director, and a lot of this is on you too. So,
yeah, and a lot of the, I guess, fan animosity is coming from the changes in Bud Walton, because that used to be a formidable place, right? And it doesn't give it the same, whatever changes they made just isn't working. And we can blame the team for being bad all you want, but whenever Arkansas was doing well against, bad teams, it was quiet. Even whenever there were, 15,000 people in there, it just doesn't. Even the student section is like light
it's not the
years.
same. Yeah.
Yes, it's just weird. And to be honest with you, this whole entire basketball season just feels weird. With Eric Musselman not there, you're like pumping you up. You're kind of like, this is weird. And
Right.
I don't know how to feel about it. To me, it doesn't feel like Arkansas basketball.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
I'm just being honest. It just doesn't feel like Arkansas basketball.
Yeah. Interesting point Transplant Texan brings up here. He said, how much does Cal bringing/recruiting sons of his former players play into that poor play? Was he looking for the best players or kind of making dreams come true for the kids of quote unquote his guys? It's a concern.
I don't know, because both those are the main two were really highly rated.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just, it's a little bit pay for play, but there's a lot of those AAU teams out there. A lot of kids paying to play, and if they're coming out and they're top of that, then I would agree with it. I think basketball ratings are a little bit more accurate than football ratings when it comes to recruiting, just because there's a very organized way to recruit kid, or to put talent in one space. If that
I
makes
also
sense.
feel like with basketball recruiting, you get a lot larger sample sets as well, because you have a lot more games that are played. You can see a lot consistency, a lot more between these kids playing for their high schools, for their travel teams, for these AAU teams. These
Plus,
kids are
they
playing
play each other.
Yeah.
See, high school football, you play your season and that's it. There's no travel teams for that. Whenever you're an elite basketball player, you play guys all around the country. So that's just how it is.
I was about to say, you're probably playing basketball almost 12 months of the year at that point.
Yeah. So I believe that at least in the case of Carter Knox and Billy Richmond, he went after him because, well, first and foremost, because they're 5-star guys. And then secondly, because they're the, legacy type players. Now, Thiero is also a legacy guy, and he was a 3-star, wasn't highly rated out of high school. And here's where people talk about not developing kids, and he's not very good at the coaching aspect. Dude, Thiero was not a great basketball player whenever he came to. And into his skill, into his the way he's playing, he's finally starting to use his big body, but that proves to me that Cal still got it somewhere, like the coaching aspect. Now the X's and O's, I don't know, because I don't know basketball well enough. Like I know football to tell you how bad the schemes are, but I can tell you how Thiero was not as good at Kentucky, and he's the number 1 player on Arkansas's team right now, and he plays out of his mind sometimes. So I feel like there's a balance between it, but whenever he went over to get Thiero, he also had a great team. So that was kind of more of a making a guy dream come true, but also seeing talent in him, and then working with it. But I don't think he's if a guy's not good, I don't think he's going to go after him. But anyway, at least if he doesn't think he can make something out of it, he's not going to go after him.
Yeah. Another thing that, I agree with, that, I think it's evident on this team, as Transplant Texans says, we don't have a guy like a Kamani Johnson, a Jay Will, a Devo in his early years on this team. The closest guy we kind of have to that is a Billy Richmond, a guy that can kind of come off the bench and really just bring a spark of energy. I mean, we don't have a guy like that, I feel like. And I agree. I mean, the closest one, like I said, is Billy Richmond. I mean, he comes off the bench and brings, a lot of energy. But other than that, it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, he's correct. He's absolutely correct. There's only Richmond out there with that certain sense of urgency. They had the guy who is like, well, I mean, I feel like Theo also has that, but he has more of a playmaking role type of guy. Whenever you have a Billy Richmond, he's a glue guy, right? He's the one who does the hard things. He's the one who does the little things, makes plays here or there, but really just plays very good defense and keeps the guys energized. That they don't have anyone else with a big enough body for me to be happy about. Like Kamani Johnson, Jay Will. Well, I don't really want to say Jay Will was that type of player. I feel like he was a genuine leader that Arkansas also doesn't have. I don't think they have a genuine leader. So I feel like there's a lot of missing pieces that aren't necessarily on the court type of skills, leadership, being the energy guy, being a glue guy. Those type of roles are just kind of not there. It's a little weird. Like I keep telling you, it's weird. That's the only word I can think of. It's just a weird thing overall. And I don't care what Kentucky fans say. There's no way that you would think that Arkansas was going to be this bad with the guys that Cal brought in.
Yeah. That's like Jerry says that he agrees with Transplant Texas, who needs some of those junkyard dogs on this team, those guys with that mentality. And yeah, it's like you said, you don't have really any of that. A couple of other comments down through here. Transplant Texans said fans are used to having players that played for the name on their chest, regardless of what star rating they came in. Pigpen says, to be fair, it's not 10 out of 10 times a new coach comes in and year one has, a banger of a season. We really only expected that because of Cal's name.
Well, I feel like there's a little more to that. I don't expect it just because of Cal's name. I expect it because of who he brought in with him. So those, I keep harping on it. 6 of those guys were guys that he handpicked before he ever stepped foot in Arkansas. So 2/3 of the team are his guys, a holdover and then 2 transfers. So I expected to see more of what they had at Kentucky last year. Missing kind of what was his name? Antonio Reeves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're missing guys who can shoot. Basically, that's what it is.
And it's like we said, he went out and got some guys, and that was Nelly Davis was kind of supposed to be that equivalent, that guy that can come in and shoot for you. And that's just not happening.
But he holds them there and makes them sit, and he'll catch and shoot instead of shooting off the dribble. And that's, I think, I swear, dude, if he comes out in the next 4 or 5 games or whatever, however long Boogie, and he goes off because he's holding the ball and he's actually making the plays, he's so pissed. Because I've been saying it, so do what you. And the thing is, if Boogie Flan comes back and they go back to him not doing that, I'm going to be even more pissed because it's ridiculous. I don't know why you're not making him play like you did at FAU.
And that's the thing that worries me is it's like if for some odd reason they find a rhythm, find a groove, and actually look like they can halfway play decent basketball, I'm afraid that when Boogie's healthy, he's going to go back like it was, like you said, and then it's going to go back to how we were instead of adapting and kind of maybe filling Boogie into where, if like you said, if it comes in and, Nelly's playing the point, handling the ball a lot more, heck, bring in Boogie back and start him, but play him off ball. I mean, let him play off ball. And that way, you don't disrupt the rhythm. Hypothetically, if you can find something in Boogie's absence.
Yeah. And I don't know if he will or not. Or if they'll do anything at all while Boogie's gone. But we'll see. I don't think there's a person on earth that can make somebody as good as John L. Davis was at FAU look like he does now, at least coaching wise. I mean, Transplant Texton comes in and he talks about the Noah system a lot and how maybe changing a shot might, but I don't know how much of that is actually happening, but it just feels like there's like, I don't think it's a coaching thing necessarily. Like, I don't think that he's telling him to do one thing when he's used to doing something else or making adjustments to his game. I feel like it just has to be scheming. Like it just feels like it has to be scheming to me because of how far he dropped from last year.
I agree. Yeah. It's like, what has he done wrong? Because, I mean, a majority of this staff is the same staff from Kentucky for the most part. You brought Kenny Payne back on staff after his stint at Louisville, and he was a guy that played a big part of, some of that success, when he was at Kentucky before he left for Louisville. So it's like you wonder, like I saw somebody comment before and talked about, does he need to change up his staff a little bit? I mean, is this staff like on top of, how we're performing? Does that affect it? Like, are they kind of not only just Cal, but maybe that staff been together so long, none of them are really changing to the times of this new era of basketball?
Yeah, I don't know, to be honest with you. When things start going wrong, everybody starts blaming everything. So I don't know how much of it's true and how much of it's not. When things are going right, all the little things that are not good, they get swept under the rug because they're winning. But whenever you're not winning, every little detail is examined, and every little detail, people are thinking, something's wrong with it. So I don't know. I don't know how much the staff is playing into this. I don't know how much it being yes men is playing into this, or they're not meshing. Well, I wouldn't say they don't mesh well because they did well at Kentucky last year. Payne and Cal have been done well before, so it doesn't make sense to me. Now the thing is, I think I talked to you about it. I'm not sure if I actually talked about it on here, but seeing his assistants on the sideline, and they're not necessarily like the suit and the tie because that's classic, but they look fancy. I don't know how to say this without sounding, like it's a problem, because I don't think it is, but it just doesn't feel like Arkansas basketball, like with $1,000 suits on, or really nice suits with jewelry and the fancy pocket squares and the nice watches, all that. It just screams like NFL guys go into the game, but right before the game you see them walk in and they got all the swag on and whatnot. It just doesn't feel like Arkansas basketball to me. And maybe that's because I'm used to the polos and the khakis from Eric Musselman. I don't know. But I don't mind just like a suit and tie. Why does and this is really just going off on something that I personally don't like, but there's a culture aspect to it too. Because these guys are getting paid a lot of money to be the coaches here, a lot more than Musselman's staff did.
Mm-hmm.
especially Payne. Payne gets paid like a couple million, right? Or $1 million. I don't know off the top of my head, but it's a lot more than what anyone on Eric Musselman's staff made.
Well, especially
And
because Kenny Payne is also associate
right.
head coach. Him and Chin Coleman are both associate head coaches.
Right. And to be honest, most of that is just a title so they can get a little bit more money whenever they come in. That's basically what it is. It's kind of like the defensive coordinators for Woodson and Travis Williams.
Travis Williams.
Yeah. It's Travis Williams, the DC, but they have a ones because he wanted to get paid more. Woodson. What's his name?
Marcus Woodson.
Marcus Woodson. Yeah. Anyway, it just the culture aspect of that to me is like we're so good before they actually prove it out on the court, if that makes sense. I know I'm kind of just babbling here, but it just they're showing off their stuff before they actually show it all on the court. And whenever it goes all the way up to, your coaches doing that on the sideline, it just doesn't sit well with me necessarily. I don't know. It's probably not a big deal, but I just, like I said, it just doesn't feel like Arkansas basketball.
Yeah, a little flashiness there. It's just interesting to think about. Pigpen said here, you think about college basketball with these players too, with some of these guys, it's just a different era of players. He said, think about it. In 2014, Boogie Flan was 8 years old. And so you got to think money probably attracts more than just a team name. So that's part of it as far as going back to kind of thinking about playing for Arkansas or Kentucky, whatever it may be. But like Transplant Sexton said, Cal brought in Kenny Payne and Brad Calipari, that they weren't on staff last year. Yeah, some of the staff was from Kentucky, and then some weren't. Kenny Payne was not on staff, but he was formerly at Louisville. Louisville also was in a Louisville was in a coaching search as well this offseason. That was actually a school that was thrown out there when all the Eric Musselman stuff started happening. Louisville was thrown out there for a potential landing spot whenever jobs started coming opening, and everybody thought he was wanting to leave. So, but Steve O says we have 3 ball dominant guards and it's not working.
That is true, because the only one that's not, and I don't even think he plays like a guard, is on the depth chart. Is Thero listed as a forward or not? I can check it out.
Yes,
he is. Okay, so but he plays like a guard. He doesn't. I don't think he plays like a forward. But he's right. It's that they have 3 guys who play point basically, or at least really like to have the ball in their hands.
Yeah, because if you just look at the roster, you've got Nelly Davis guard, Boogie Flan guard, Thero's listed as a forward, Carter Knox is listed as a forward, and Billy Richmond forward. Some of those guys that sometimes will play out on the wing are listed more at that forward spot. So, yeah, I wonder how much of it is, Pigpen says here, good thought too. Unfortunately, Cal could be running into the Saban problem, stockpiling talent without NIL. Worries was easy, now not so much, where you have, 5-star on top of 5-star, at each position. So now it's the world of NIL. It's like, hey, I could go play for Kentucky, but I could go over here and get paid some money and, get more playing time as well.
Yeah. I think that more or less has to do with recruiting high school than it does college, because the turnover to the league or to NBA is so much easier or higher, because guys are usually ready to go pro a lot quicker than they are in football. So now I feel like it's a little bit of a problem. Like Kobe Brea, I think they missed on him because he threw out a number and Cal didn't want it to pay that. And I think more or less because he was already paying a lot for Janelle Davis, who, didn't turn out too well. But Brea is one of those guys who doesn't need the ball in his hands. He can sit out on the wing and then shoot threes, and that's what he does. Yeah, he nearly 50% this year. So, yeah, that's what they're missing. And I mean, we can talk about what they're missing. I don't even know how they go forward with it, with what they have, even if Boogie was healthy. One of those guys is going to have to change the way he plays, and you're halfway through the season. You're not going to be able to adapt
Just
him
have a guy,
playing as a wing. Yeah, because they don't have a wing type guy. They don't have like a Moses Moody type of dude on this team.
Yeah. Interesting thoughts here by Transplant Texan. I kind of agree with a point of this. He said leadership and buy-in starts at the top. Example, Cal keeps wearing blue. It's the optics Cal is sending to the fan base. That's something that I have thought has been interesting. Even yesterday's game, he wore a baby blue jacket, sport coat. He has incorporated some more red into his quote unquote look, but you still see blue popping up in different forms. And he'll have some pocket squares that are blue. He'll have some, like yesterday, that blue jacket, or he'll be wearing like maybe just some neutral, nothing like red, where it's like you mentioned a while ago in the Muss era, they all wore like red, some type of Razorback polo. The whole coaching staff wore the exact same polo. They were uniform and things like that. And I can see the optics of like the fan base being like, he's wearing blue, he's here at Arkansas, but does he kind of still wish he was at Kentucky type of thing?
See, the last few games, like before this game, the last 3 games, he wore a red blazer though.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's being a little bit nitpicky.
At this point, I think with how bad the performance has been, people are trying to dive into things a little bit more. I can see the optics scene, like it's like we're losing and everything, and then people are like, "Oh wait, he's wearing a blue pocket square, like he's wearing that light blue blazer." When if we were winning, probably people wouldn't care.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the same with the them looking like they're too good to be there. That's basically how I didn't say it earlier, but that's how it feels like they're just high up and snooty, even though they suck. Not the players necessarily, but the coaching staff, and
like almost like an NBA coaching staff type of look.
Right. And that's fine. I get the draw, especially whenever you're wanting for high school recruiting, but I don't know, it just doesn't sit well with me. It just doesn't. Now the colors thing, I don't know, man. That's a little bit too much.
Yeah, Pigpen says purple, green, orange, yellow, but blue is off limits. That's just logical.
Hey man, he's got a 15 years worth of blue in his wardrobe. You can give him at least a year to get rid of all of it.
Right. Steve-O says, do you think this is do we think this is a winless conference team? I mean, for me right now, my answer, I don't want to say yes, but also I can't look at our conference schedule and point to a win either, though. This team is really going to have to do major improvements. And like we said, with it being almost middle of the season already, I don't know what else you can change. I mean, there's a possibility. I mean, if we keep playing like we have, and then you don't have Boogie for who knows, 3, 4, 8, 5 games. I don't know how long his hand injury is going to keep him out of the game. That's a real possibility.
Yeah, there's only 2 games in the schedule that I actually feel good about. And the only reason why I don't feel good about Oklahoma is because Boogie's injury. But the 2 that I feel good about is Texas at Arkansas and then Arkansas has South Carolina. I know South Carolina, they beat Clemson in South Carolina, but I don't know. I feel like when they're in Columbia against a team they want to beat, they're not bad. They're not horrible, but against, regular SEC competition, especially on the road, they're not very good at all. But Arkansas going into South Carolina, I feel good about that. I think South Carolina probably still wins, but it's probably a game. Texas and Arkansas, I feel like Arkansas can beat them. Just because they're not super good. And then I feel like Texas is going to beat Arkansas whenever they go down to Austin. So I feel like it'll be like a little bit of a revenge game.
Well, I was going to say that was going to be my next question was, so you said you feel good about us with Texas coming here, but not the one in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I that's fair because the way they've been. I mean, if you look at it too, us and South Carolina, I believe, are the only two teams left that don't have a conference win right now. It's an 0-5 at the bottom of the SEC. So, back on what we were talking a while ago, Transplant Texan said Cal also wore over his, I presume, a spider jacket over his, I assume, 1/4 zip hog pullover at the previous post game press conference. I did notice that, and Transplant Texas says $7 million a year. Says Cal can get a full wardrobe of red blazers and hankies. I agree. It's there, so I understand the optics part of it, just because like people are like, we're doing bad, so it's like people are finding stuff to nitpick. Big Ben said that gives off Chad Morris vibe, not moving his family to Arkansas vibes.
I feel like that's a good comparison. I don't necessarily. I don't know if it's that extreme though, because I mean he did move his family here. I mean his coach, his son is on the staff, and he has a lot of red in his wardrobe. Like I said, I think before yesterday, 3 or 4 games in a row, he wore at least like a red blazer or a red shirt or something,
or like
something that was a shade of red. So I don't know. I think everybody's just reading a little too much into the last week or this past game in his wardrobe. Now, as far as the $7 million thing, here's the thing with me though. I don't care if I'm going to another place. I'm not changing my whole wardrobe for it, all in 1 year at least. So I don't know. I'm with Cal on that one. I'm not getting. If I have a nice suit that's blue, I'm gonna wear it. That's just what it is. I don't know. Hey, I don't know. As long as he's buying some more red stuff, right? And we can see that he is, because he never wore anything red at Kentucky. Now he's wearing, 3 or 4. He has a really nice plaid. I like the plaid blazer he wore the other day too.
Yeah,
I thought it was really cool looking. But I feel like he's introducing wardrobe stuff to his wardrobe, and that's all I can ask for, at least.
Yeah, slowly a little bit. Jerry says we all wear a Razorback red with pride, and so should he. So, I mean, I think he's slowly doing that. So we'll see. Pigpen said Muss had USC merch on before he left campus. that he did. He must have had that, because you saw as soon as that he was on the plane, his whole family had USC merch on. And then Transplant Texan says Aaron Torres, pro Cal, said in his Sunday podcast that Cal might actually want to step aside if he wants to salvage his coaching legacy.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe, but also how much of his legacy, if possible, if, this year's a bad year, you turn around next year and within these next 4 years of his contract, he makes some major tournament noise, if you will. Like, there's two options to look at that. Like, he could step aside and this was just a bad year downward, type thing. Or, this is a bad year. Next year we bring in the right combination, more guys, and, get back to the tournament type situation.
Right. I think so too. Now, he kind of brings up a good point in the next one about, if he plans on staying here 5 years. And, to be honest with you, whenever he came in, I didn't really expect him to stay the 5 years anyway. I felt like he was going to come in, do a couple, 2 or 3 years, and then retire. Because I don't think he wants to coach much after this, if at all,
Yeah, his quote, when they had his intro press conference and did the sit down and question and answer with him, they said he said he wants to help, what I think it was like 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 more families, talking about helping kids get to the league and that type of situation. And so, who knows how many years that's going to be. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, part of me would like to say I'd see him being here all 5 years, but also, like you said, he's getting up there. He was at Kentucky for a long time. Yeah, I mean, how much longer does he necessarily want to put up with the headache of, recruiting these kids and having to deal with NIL and all that stuff instead of, just purely coaching basketball? It's kind of like, what we talked about with the whole Petrino situation of not wanting to be a head coach again because he didn't want to deal with all of that, because since he's getting older, I don't know how much of that could apply to Cal and how long he wants to continue, if he, fulfills that 5-year contract.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and if you look at him in the pressers too, it looks like it's taking a toll on him. So, I don't know, man.
Yeah. Transplant. Jerry said, would we even be talking about colors if we were winning? Probably not. Not at all.
90% of people wouldn't be.
Yeah. Transplant Texan said Cal wore the same hog quarter zip for weeks after hired. I wondered then, how hard is it to procure some jackets from the Hog Pen merch store in Bud Walton? So
got a point.
Yeah, it's interesting. Pigpen says, since I've been alive, Vandy has always been at the bottom of every category except maybe baseball. Being anywhere near that is embarrassing. I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, especially Arkansas basketball, like even in the Mike Anderson years, they weren't great, but they also weren't bottom of the barrel, dead last in the SEC either. Like they were middle of the pack, for the most part.
Yeah.
And then Musk came in, got you towards that top, 5, 6 in those, those first years of Musk up until last year. And then, I'm sure that's like the whole thing is everybody expected this year to build upon what Musk was going to be and then finish top 5 in the SEC this season.
Yeah, and I don't feel like that was unrealistic expectations either. With what he brought in and how much like consistency he brought in, like hand choosing those guys. I can't emphasize that enough, that he hand chose 6 of the dudes at Kentucky before he ever came over here. So, I mean, if we're talking about it, this is, if Cal would have stayed at Kentucky, how much different would it have looked at Kentucky versus here?
Right.
So, and I'm not trying to make excuses.
Or
right. And I'm not trying to make excuses here. I'm just saying, like, this is on Cal. And this is on who he's chosen to bring in, either high school recruiting or through the transfer portal. And I don't think that the expectation of, having a top 5 SEC team is that big of a stretch for what he brought in. It just isn't. And I don't know. And I'm not like that with any other sport. I don't even know if college baseball, I don't know if our baseball team is going to make it to the College World Series. I don't expect them to make it to the College World Series because baseball's crazy. And Arkansas always shoots themselves in the foot some way or another. So I don't expect it with them. But with Arkansas basketball, I just did. And I don't know why it hurts more. Maybe it's because I actually expected something from them. But this, like we were talking about it earlier, if I'd have told you at the beginning of the season that Arkansas football was going to have a better season than Arkansas basketball, every one of y'all would have laughed at me. And now here we are. Football season's a lot easier to swallow now that we have basketball here. And I don't know. And now I'm just thinking, well, what is baseball going to do to me? Because Arkansas sports is just a toxic relationship. That's all it is. I just keep coming back, and she keeps, throwing me away. It's horrible.
Yeah.
I love it,
I'm
but
right
it's
here.
horrible.
Yeah, I'm right here with you, Jerry. I wear my Razorback gear all the time. That's like, easily probably 90% of my wardrobe in my closet. Whether it be t-shirts, polos, jackets, hoodies, you name it, I've got it. And I rock it for a lot of the time, even when we suck. So I feel you there, Jerry. Pigpen says, he said, Caleb, X and O question. What is the difference between Muss's offense and Cal's offense? Muss had Cal's number a few times. I mean, if we do remember, I mean, Transplant Texan, good point on the answer there. Gus Arganel. That was a big part of Muss's X and O game. But another part, I think when you look at it is we haven't really seen great inbounds plays from Cal either. Compared to what Muss would draw up from time to time in timeouts coming out of, timeouts and having great plans for a play. And I think part of it goes back to what Austin was talking about. We don't really have a wing type of player. We have, and what Steve-O said earlier, we have 3 ball dominant guards that, they really perform better whenever they have the ball in their hands. They're not great off the ball type of guys. And I think you see some of that struggles out there when you watch the game. A lot of these guys, they go down the court and they'll go to the wing or the corner and just kind of stand there, maybe move around a little bit, or, and then you see maybe Adu or whoever, Big Z, come up and, try to create a screen for one of these guys. There doesn't seem like any true offensive game plans, if you will. It's like they're just kind of ad-libbing it when they go down the court.
Yeah, for Kentucky, it's just a lot, like you said, a lot of screens and drive and then kick out. That's pretty much offensive plan for Arkansas right now. For Musselman complaining about his offense because there's guys going out there one-on-one trying to make those matchups to where ISO would work. Al doesn't do that. I don't feel like he does that anyway. I think he gets his ball maker, his playmakers, and gives them the ball, and then screens and tries to get them to the basket, basically. And Eric Musselman, they did a lot more of that trying to get people off of somebody else so they can have better matchups. And I don't think Arkansas does it that well.
Yeah.
If at all.
I agree there. Yeah. To answer your question here, Transplant Texan, the answer is probably going to be bad. What will attendance look like? Bud Walton go forward if we continue to lose? I mean, it's going to.
Yeah. I mean, it's always going to sold out. But
yeah,
that's part of the reason why we're like that's part of the reason why fan morale is down, I believe. But no, I don't think it's going to look good. I feel like it's going to be halfway up or halfway full, and I don't know. Bud Walton's just a shell of what it was in just a year.
Yeah, it's insane. One last thing here while we finish up kind of basketball talking and jump to a couple other things before we get ready to wrap up. Transplant Texans, if players are struggling with ball security as well, that is an issue I've noticed. He said they're waiting on passes instead of going towards the passes. Several cases of quote-unquote butterfingers out there. Mizzou game was one of the worst. I mean, I know Cal was talking about part of his press conference was where they had 13 turnovers. He was like, he kind of was talking about how he was like, I like to usually stay below 11, 12, 13, okay. He said 14, 15 is when you start getting in trouble. But even, that many is still tough. But yeah. I mean, this guy is kind of waiting on passes instead of trying to make, thinking ahead and trying to move towards passes. And I think maybe part of that goes into, like we were saying, no really game plan and kind of ad-libbing it. Guys are just out there kind of not having a plan of what they're going to do. Guys just kind of randomly coming up and screening and then, things like that. No true game plans or like we said with trying to ISO guys and get good matchups and things like that. So these guys aren't really, I guess, planning on like going towards a pass compared to, oh, they're throwing me the ball now. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, and I also don't think there's much urgency whenever they pass it either. Like, so with Eric Musselman's teams, you saw a lot of those bullet type passes, kind of like the one that Brazil threw at Adu. Now he was way too close to be throwing a pass like that, but you don't see things like that now. They're mostly just kind of chest pass, like just lackadaisical, just not a whole lot of effort in it. And there's not a whole lot of effort to come get the ball. It's almost like they're doing a walkthrough instead of actually going out there and, playing basketball. And I think that has to do a lot with, like, I think the receiving end and the passing end of passes need to be crisper, need to be need to be cleaner, and with more urgency. They just don't play with urgency at all, really. And like Transplant Texas said, it's basically Billy Richmond out there. That's it.
Yeah.
And then in Brazil with that one pass at Big Z's face from 5 feet away. But,
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. They have Georgia coming to town on Wednesday, late tip-off game, 8:00. So we'll see. This will be the first game with no Boogie. We'll see what the starting lineup looks like, what the rotation looks like. I would like to think you feel like you have to get somebody else involved. I could be wrong. Cal maybe sticks to his guns and runs an 8-man rotation, but those guys are going to be gassed, and I think you're going to see more of maybe we get on a run or two, but then these guys are going to be so tired that gives Georgia the opportunity to make a run and kind of continue to win. So we'll see what happens. I'll be interested to see game plan going forward without Boogie, and maybe they can figure out something. But right now, it's tough to watch, and we'll just have to see. Transplant Texan says if Janelle goes off, can't wait to hear from Austin. So. I agree. It's going to be fun. It's like you said, it's going to be like, where was this at the whole time type of situation. So
all I know is that I'm going to call up Hunter Yurchek and say he owes me money for that.
Hey, I mean, I get you there. So we'll jump over to, before we get out of here, Arkansas Gymnastics season is here. The past few years, if you haven't caught up with it or, watched any of it, I challenge you to go out there and, watch some of these gymnastics meets. What Jordan Weber has done with this gymnastics program since she's come in, being a former gold Olympic, gymnast herself. It's been pretty great. And, these meets are fun to watch. Just to give you an idea, normally the meets over the past few years have been held in Barnhill Arena, the old basketball arena. And then they've done one or two in Bud Walton over the years. And then this season, all the meets are in Bud Walton this year because they've had such great fan turnout. This program has, went up and, kind of gotten onto the national level. I mean, we have some great athletes on this team. I mean, heck, you even have a Olympian in Jocelyn Robertson that she was at the Olympics this past year. She was an alternate for the Olympics team. She went through trials. I watched the trials for the Olympic gymnastics qualifying. Mike Transplant Texan says freshman gymnast, she is impressive. She first year, she is true freshman for Arkansas, was in the Olympics, went to the Olympics. And unfortunately, we did drop our first conference meet of the season. We were on the road at Auburn, dropped the meet 196.7 to 196.2. Not the greatest day on some of the events for Arkansas, if you look at it. But this is going to be a fun gymnastics season, to have all these meets in Bud Walton, along with Arkansas's got a couple of transfers that they grabbed from some in the transfer portal for gymnastics, and then what recruiting Jordan Weber's done. You've got Frankie Price also back. She's been one of the best for Arkansas gymnastics over the past few years, almost like a fan favorite. Cammie Weaver's back. This is a very experienced team. They finished in the they were in the NCAA tournament version of gymnastics last year, and I expect them to make a run again this year. They're going to come back home for they have a couple matches coming up actually tomorrow, both in Bud Walton. They've got it's a tri meet, so they're going to be going up against Denver and TWU. Starts at 1:45, and then your first home gymnastic meet in Bud Walton will be Friday, January 24th, this upcoming Friday against LSU. And then, with the SEC, you're going to get to see a lot of talented top gymnasts. I mean, if you think across the SEC at one point, you had Suni Lee that went to Auburn and, was at Auburn, Arkansas, in their first meet of the season in a quad meet in Oklahoma City, they went up against Kentucky, Ohio State, and UCLA. Well, Jordan Childs, another Olympian, competes for UCLA. So these gymnastics this season, it's going to be fun to watch. Any thoughts there, Austin? I know you said you're not too deep in the gymnastics world, but thoughts there?
Yeah, man. I've been too wrapped up in basketball and football and the transfer portal, all that stuff, to really focus on some of the smaller but still very important sports at Arkansas. So like women's basketball, I know they're not good, but I try to follow a little bit. And then gymnastics. Now let me tell you something. If there's one sport that I don't know much about whatsoever, but I love watching, is gymnastics, because what they do is like the epitome of what the human body can do, if that makes any sense whatsoever. That, like, you think track and field, yeah, sure, they do one aspect of it. Each event is like one aspect of what humans can do. With gymnastics, it's like everything wrapped into one. I mean, obviously they're not throwing like a javelin or a discus or something like that, but they use the same type of movements, especially like with men's gymnastic and the horse. I can't remember what that one's called.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, we don't have men's gymnastics here, so I don't get to see that. But you just the amount of strength and body control that these athletes have, it's just amazing. It's insane to see them do the things that they do. And I'm just sitting here. Yeah, pommel horse. And it's just I don't know, I'm in awe. It's one of those things, like, I see a football player do things like, hey, Saquon Barkley just reverse hurdled somebody. That's insane. But like, if I were keeping up my body the way that you should and work out and do those things, I could imagine myself somehow maybe doing that. I cannot imagine myself ever doing anything in gymnastics. It's just, they're incredible athletes. And I think Arkansas has one of the best programs at least in the SEC. And it kind of tells you a lot. You said they lost at Auburn. Okay, so
Yeah.
their first two SEC meets are Auburn and LSU. I mean, that kind of tells you where they think Arkansas is, because Auburn and LSU are one of two of the best in the SEC. So it's,
yeah,
I don't know.
Gymnastics, just echoing what Austin's saying, gymnastics is fun to watch. I mean, I've gotten into it the past few years, in depth watching it, going to meets this year. My wife and I actually got season tickets for gymnastics because she wanted to go to these meets and really has gotten into it. And they are fun to watch, especially if you go. It's fun to watch it on TV, but if you get a chance to get out there and go to Bud Walton, it's an insane environment for how many people show up to Bud Walton and will support this team. And if you haven't, I think I mentioned it last week, go check out the newest season of Special Forces. I think we watch it on Hulu. Jordan Weber's in it, as they have a lot of former athletes in it. It's like Cam Newton's in it. They have a few other Golden Tate.
Yeah.
And
and then celebrities.
A few other different athletes. And so it's fun to watch, but it also gives you an idea of their work ethic, and they kind of dive into some of their background histories and stuff. So go check her out on that, and then get out to a gymnastics meet. It's gonna be fun. And then jumping over really quick to baseball, not a ton going on there. Is we heard from Dave Van Horn last week in his press conference before the season. Season will get kicked off Thursday, February 14th. But yesterday, Gabe Geckel, freshman last year for Arkansas, was named preseason SEC Pitcher of the Year. High expectations for him. And that kind of just tells you some of the optimism for baseball. It's like Austin said earlier in the show, I hope baseball this year can, save us, if you will, compared to how, football season was okay. Basketball season we thought was going to be all that, and now they're doing worse. And so, come on, DVH, let's go. Let's, you carry the load, if you will. But this question here by Transplanted Texan, he said, who has the bigger attendance going forward, men's basketball or women's gymnastics? I wouldn't.
It depends on how well women's gymnastics does, but I would say women's gymnastics.
I was about to say,
tickets are cheaper.
Yeah, tickets are cheaper. You can get a cheap ticket for gymnastics very easily. So,
yeah.
Plus you get to go in Bud Walton, and the seating and the view. I love Barnhill. It's got classic. It's got a nice classic old time feel. But man, there's something about just the newer stadium, and you can see things much better, and you have the huge video board that it's just a great thing. And I love that they were able to work out the logistics this year to have all the meets there.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. Yeah, especially have that much room and make it the event that it deserves to be.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
And then, Transplant Texan said fans are putting a lot of pressure on DVH to make it to Omaha. Very true.
Yeah. I don't think most of the pressure is on him, though. I really think a lot of it's on Juracek.
Yeah, more or less by association, needing that success on the baseball field. It's tough. I would think, and I think, every year the expectation is there for DVH just because of the talent that he's able to bring into the university. We've seen what Arkansas has done the past few years, have fantastic regular seasons. The talent's there. Got to put together a postseason, though. That's what we need. He said the team has a good mindset this year. We kind of talked about it a little bit on Thursday's episode. He said he feels that this year the team has a little bit different mindset. Says hitting should be better. Say we have a little bit more equalized approach with pitching across the board, as far as you don't have just one true standout dominant pitcher like you had Hagen Smith last year. You have a lot more guys that are going to be you're going to have a more even keel rotation, if you will.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I mean, look, I think like two of our closers. So Gage Wood was a true freshman, right? Last year,
I believe he's a sophomore.
He's a sophomore, but he's still a young guy. And then you have Geckel, who was a true freshman, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got a lot of the young guys who were in important roles. I mean, you don't want just any, scrub to be a closer. You want some of your best guys out there, and they were chosen, and now they're probably going to be starters this year. And Gabe Geckel is, I mean, I remember him being super. I feel like he was good until he wasn't. Last year, like in games, I think he was consistent. I think he had like a pitch count, and whenever he hit it, he just kind of went, and then you had to go from there. But if anybody can make pitchers, develop pitchers, is Arkansas's baseball coaching staff.
Yeah, and you think some of the freshmen coming in too, you got like a guy like Carson Wiggins, if the name sounds familiar. He is the younger brother of Jackson Wiggins, and is just as talented. I mean, he was a guy that Arkansas truly didn't expect to have on their roster this year. He is a guy that they, for all intents and purposes, thought was going to get drafted and, go the pro route through the minors, but decided to attend college. You've got a guy like Christian Fauch, who has been known for, pumping out heat. He's back. You've got Colin Fisher, he was a true freshman last year, started several midweek games, looked great. He's back, after having a little bit of an injury issue last year. So you've got a lot of talent across the board when it comes to that pitching room. Like Transplant Texan said, need healthy pitchers all season. That is where the Hawgs suffered last season, in addition to the inconsistent hitting. And I think you'll probably see a different approach to hitting as a whole. I think Dave Van Horn kind of said that coaching staff went back to the drawing board and said you can't just rely on long ball. And I think you'll see from some of the players who brought in the transfer portal and recruiting class, you'll see a mindset of, we're not just going to be dependent on the long ball, and that you're going to see a lot more singles, doubles, and, base stealing type of play compared to what we've seen out of Arkansas the past few years.
Which I'm going to be glad. I'm tired of watching them swing for the fences and miss. So,
yeah.
No, I'm happy about that. Especially with runners in scoring position.
Yeah, that drove me nuts. Like you have a guy at second and third, and you're trying to swing for the fences when if you could just pop it into the gap, you're scoring 1 to 2 runs potentially. So,
right, exactly.
So we'll see. I mean, you saw last year Kentucky did a great job of that in baseball, playing that small ball type of, doubles, singles, things like that. And they made it a decent run. So we'll see. Transplant Texas said, great to hear about the hitting philosophy changes. Gorilla ball sounds great, but base hits win ball games. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. We'll keep you guys up to date, as we get closer to the season. Not sure if we're going to have any more press conferences from DVH unless it's right before season, kind of opening day type scenarios. We'll have to see. But if we do, we'll keep you guys up to date on that. And before we get out here, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. You can find us on YouTube. And then also go check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. We're keeping those up to date as well. And we'll be right back here on Thursday. I'm going to be going to the game on Wednesday, so we'll see what they do. First game without Boogie. We thank everybody for tuning in tonight. And as always, have a great rest of your week. Tomorrow's MLK Day. I know I'm off. I don't know how many businesses are going to be closed, how much you guys, but enjoy the beginning of the weekend. We'll be right back here Thursday with you guys and keeping you up on everything happening in Razorback Nation in the world of Arkansas athletics. So until then, we're going to get out of here, and you guys have a great week.